Hi, I'm down here. My name's Corbett Harrison, and there I am, a reading and a writing teacher, and I have a notebook challenge for you today. I do keep my own interactive reading and writing notebook, my interactive reading notebook. I try to do a pretty good job when I read something that I haven't known before, and then I want to reflect on it. That's, to me, the purpose of an interactive reading notebook. And today is a challenge for my students to make an interesting page for your next reflection. You know my class. You know that when you have an interactive writing notebook or reading notebook, your pages need to include the following. Clearly, they need to have some sort of content that you've learned. And usually content is in the teacher's words or in the notes words. In order for it to be accurate, you'll want to make sure it is close to the words. Sometimes you can put a few of your own word spins into it, but mostly the notes on important content probably should be in the accurate words of where you're taking notes from. Then you should have a place on your interactive notebook pages to reflect personally. Ask yourself, how does this information affect me personally? What else can I connect it to? What does this remind me of? Is there something else that I can think about that connects to this sort of thing? Those are personal reflections, and my students are challenged to do reflections in interesting ways. That's what this video is about. Can you take an interesting challenge and apply it to your notebook? And then the third thing that's required on my interactive notebook pages are some element of interactivity. My students are required to share their pages with each other. That's part of the learning experience. And to make the sharing interesting, I require them to build an interactive element to the page. They can build a riddle into the page or hide with some hidden clues, or they can have a quiz at the end of the page. There's a variety of ways to make pages interactive. All right, let's talk about today's challenge, which is actually based a different way of doing some personal reflections on content. The challenge is, can you build an interactive page that's inspired by a song or two or three? And this challenge is actually inspired by one of my favorite books that's in my classroom library. It's called Take Me Out of the Bathtub and Other Silly Dilly Songs by Alan Katz, K-A-T-Z. And all Alan Katz did, and this is not just an all, but what he did was he took famous tunes that we should all know the tunes to, like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and he gave them new lyrics because he gave them different things to think about. And so he wrote a song about diaper changing. I will not sing the song to you, but I will hum the word, or hum the tune. It's an interesting process to put new words to a tune that you already know, but that's a way to possibly reflect on a topic. Now, could you do this with a topic that you would actually research, not diapers, though you could research diapers, but like noble gases. Could you do noble gases? And so here's my attempt. Noble gases are not kings, but they share some common things. Monatomic, odorless, no color in these types of gas. Kind of weak, but that's not the strongest song I ever wrote. But those things in the middle paragraph, the middle lyric there, are all things I could talk about. I could explain what monatomic meant if I shared this reflective song, and then you could ask and I could explain it. I will explain it further on in this particular video, so I won't explain it now. But that's what I mean by using a song's tune, but creating new lyrics. I did it in my writer's notebook once to the tune of I've Been Working on the Railroad. Our border collie, great dog, had diabetes late in his life, and so I was trying to get a glucose read on his blood sugar, and I wrote this song, and I'm glad I have it now that he's been gone for a few years. But it's easy to, well, I shouldn't say that. It's easy for some to impersonate a song in this way. I perhaps leave that as a challenge to you. And here are just some suggestions. A really easy, familiar tune like Happy Birthday works. A campfire tune, that's what I call things like Home on the Range, things you sing around the campfire. A patriotic song like Yankee Doodle or Waltzing Matilda. Any of the Christmas carols can be turned into new songs with new lyrics. A Disney tune that doesn't annoy the heck out of your parents, like The Bare Necessities, is a good one. And then my students who are in the orchestra and play, I often tell them to take their favorite classical music tune that they can remember and write lyrics to that, like Beethoven's Ode to Joy. Forgive me for being tone deaf here. Bum 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 bum. You can actually write lyrics to that. Gaseous, noble gases have no odor. Bum bum bum. I could go on and on, but that's a way to reflect in the form of a song. And so that's one challenge, write new lyrics. But another challenge I'll give you is to reflect in the form of a song by creating a song that's really just an imitation of structure, not of words and rhythm and lyrics like the first one was. Let me give you an example. I get this idea from a great book. This is the Story of My Thinking by Gretchen Burnaby. She's a friend and a great author, but she teaches organization by breaking things into parts and then impersonating those parts, and in doing so, you learn some organizational structures. And so she broke apart Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star in her book. And she said, start with a direct address, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, how I wonder what you are. Then a description of physical characteristics, like up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Those are those middle two paragraphs. And please notice that the third one over says, do it with a simile, like a diamond. And so they're borrowing structural things and challenging you to follow this pattern, and then it ends with an imperative or a command to the object and a wish or a hope. So here's me doing it to Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. No poetry involved in this whatsoever. Direct address and a question. I started with, certain gases, what makes you noble? Then I need the description number one. I made mine a little longer than just up above the world so high, but there's my first one. Here's my second description. Notice I have my simile, like a diamond, like a loner. And then finally my imperative is exist inertly, and a wish or a hope. But there I have something that's song-like, that's really just a song structure. It still was inspired by the song, and so if you're not feeling creative at all, that's one thing that you can do. Here's me having done it in my writer's notebook a few times. I once read this particular essay in the form of a textbook or a picture book about Hank Aaron, and I wrote How I Wonder, which is basically just inspired by Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And if you want to pause and read it, you can. I wrote another one based on this particular essay about how the teddy bears were called teddy bears, and I created a Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star inspired by this one as well. And just so you know, those examples are there for you to be inspired by, but it works for many things. Here's what you may have noticed that those are typed, and don't even though they're in a writer's notebook. I actually have a special template that's available at my website. My website's address is below, but you can actually type and print and then glue or tape, and it actually looks like it's on lines that you can then merge with the other lines on a page in your notebook. So you'll see that's what I've done here. I have some places at the bottom where I kept the lines and I wrote my notes there, and you can also see I added interactive elements in the form of little post-its with quiz questions on them. So after you have read my page, you should be able to answer that quiz question, and if you can't, the question is right below it. And so that is the idea of an interactive page. And notice what I did. I didn't really write a new song, I just impersonated a song. My next suggestion, suggestion number 3 of 4, is to create a playlist, or in my day we would have called them a mixtape. A mixtape was a collection of songs, usually had a theme, like this one's called Stuff to Dance to, beach music, or songs for the road trip. Those were often themes of our mixtapes, but a playlist is the same idea. My wife uses playlists when they do novel studies. She challenges her students to come up with 5 songs that represent a character or something going on in the book, and then use a couple of sentences to explain why they chose them. Here's her example for this particular book that she read, and she not only identifies the songs, but then she has to explain what those songs mean. In this case, it's describing the relationship between 2 characters. 5 songs that would describe the relationship. So that's a pretty good use. I have to say, could I make a playlist about noble gases? And the answer is yeah. I could take the song Invisible by Linkin Park, because which is not my favorite Linkin Park song, by the way, because noble gases are all invisible, and I could explain that in the description. I could then say, what else? Alone, they by heart, because they are monatomic, which means they're not bound to other atoms. They are alone atoms, and they all have that in common. so I could explain that as a song. Chemistry by Rush, not my favorite band, but they have a song, Chemistry. I thought it was interesting that there's another element, number 118, oganesson, that they predict is a noble gas, but for some reason they haven't chemically tested it, and so chemistry is required to test that. But these are the sorts of things I could put on a playlist, and so a playlist is another idea if you are required to be inspired by a song or two or three. And the last idea you're going to look at, a lot of you, and say, okay, that is way too creative for me, and let me try to talk you down from that ledge. An original song, I do have students who occasionally will write original songs. Not a lot of them, but I have more of them who write original jingles. But as you look at this list of 4 options that I'm giving you here, I say it's a page inspired by a song. Here's 4 options. The bottom 2, let's start there. I try to make all of my options here. This one's creative, but I always try to match them up with a logical one. I think coming up with a topic and listening for big ideas in that topic and doing research for song titles and then explaining, that's very logical. That's not a creative process to me at all. It's very research driven. And so I balance those 2 out as options. And please notice that if you're a more logical person, choose the more logical activity. The top 2 activities I want you to notice, though, contain a little bit of both. I think when you take a song that already exists, a tune, and put your own lyrics in it, the fact that the song exists, that's the structure, the logic that you don't need to think about. And so that part's been taken care of you so that you can focus a little bit more on the creative element. But both elements kind of have to be there for those to work. So know your own brain and challenge with the idea that works with you. When I say original songs about noble gases, like I said, I can't write full songs originally. I just don't. We write silly little songs for our nephews and our nieces. But if I was to come up with a song about noble gases, I came up with, would you say they had an honorable gas at Chernobyl if I told you that radon is a gas that's called noble? Okay, that's a terrible lyric and a terrible song, but all I did was put noble into rhymezone.com and realized, oh, Chernobyl, and then realized, oh, radon, and said, could I make a little connection there between this? Because radon is one of the noble gases. And so, bad song, but a fun little thing that I could put in the margins or at the top of my pages just to show that I reflected. Here's another one. Some things are odorous, like a stinky bus and a mule named Gus. Other things are odorless, like a piece of brass and a noble gas. And I finally got to my fact there at the end. When I write lyrics, I just sometimes like to make words bounce off of each other. And so I call those original songs. And that is another option for you to reflect on the topic that you are going to be reflecting on for this particular interactive notebook page. And so the challenge has been set. Personal reflection on the content I'm asking you to read about, and it needs to be inspired by a song. If you need to watch this video again and look at those examples a little more closely, I invite you to do that. If the idea that you come up with merges ideas from some of these into other ideas or original ideas, that is acceptable as long as you can say at the end of the process, this interactive notebook page was inspired by a song or 2 or 3. Have a great day.